So let's start the last video of the anti-dilution and let's factor it into the liquidation model and begin to wrap this thing up. So what we're going to do in order to integrate the anti-dilution calculations into the cap table is we're going to start by coming down and giving ourselves some options here. So we'll say full ratchet and weighted average. And of course these are going to be ones or zeros. I'll do a 1 and a 0. And thank you Excel for knowing that I wanted a box there. And then we'll come over here and copy and paste right under Series A. We don't need to do it for Series B because there's no Series C yet. If you factored a Series C into this, then you'd want to move this on to Series B, so on and so forth. So after that, I'm going to come up and I have AD shares here, but I want to change that to conversion rate. And I'm going to do the same thing right over here in column P. So we get those best fit real quick. After that, we're going to go in and put an if statement down here in cell L26 that will pull the right conversion rate from the anti-dilution page. So it's a little bit lengthy, but it's not that hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, first of all, if Series B pre-money valuation equals 0, then just give us a 1 here. That's just to keep us from getting an error statement. Otherwise, we're going to say if K47, so if this is a full ratchet right here, if we have full ratchet selected, that equals 1, then give us the max value from the anti-dilution tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull the conversion rates. And we're going to pull the series seed conversion rates. So one series seed conversion rate is right there in F40. The other series seed conversion rate is down here in F79. We'll close that parentheses and we'll say, then we'll put another comment and we'll say if the cap table equals if the full ratchet has a 1, then give us the max from the full ratchet ones. From, let's see, it's going to be I41, which is here, the weighted average conversion rate, and then the weighted average conversion rate from the Series B round, make sure it's for the Series Seed, which is I80. Otherwise, I'm going to close that parentheses. Otherwise, give us a 1 and close them all up. And it looks like I got it right there. So just to explain a little further what we're doing here is we're saying that we want to choose the maximum value, the maximum conversion rate from our anti-dilution calculations and insert it right here. And what we're going to do with that number is we're going to go and translate it into the liquidation model and have the liquidation model multiply the shares we own by the conversion rate to give us our conversion shares, and then let that fall through the waterfall analysis. So let's do the same thing for the Series A real quick. And the Series A is a little less complicated because you have less rounds to factor it in. So we're going to say if this number here, R29 equals 0, and give us 1. We'll say if this equals, the full ratchet equals 1, then give us, and we don't need a max formula here, we just need to go in and choose the correct one. It's anti-dilution tab, Series A, right there, 71, conversion rate, Series A, 71. And then we'll say another if statement. If the cap table weighted average is selected, so if that equals 1, then give us the one from the full ratchet, which I think is going to be right there, 72, I-72. Otherwise, give us 1, close up those parentheses, and we're done. And see, we haven't had a down round yet, so we're going to have a 1 here in these conversion rates. If we have a down round, say 5 million, then obviously we get a different conversion rate. It goes up to 2.02 because we have a lower share price right here. So just go back. So what we got to do now to integrate that into the liquidation model is go to our liquidation model tab, go up to the top where we have these conversion shares, and the conversion shares just equal, for Series B it just equals what we have. For Series A it equals the shares we have calculated there, and it equals the shares we have calculated there multiplied by the Series A conversion rate. Obviously this conversion rate is variable, so it's gonna change if we have any anti-dilution shares issued, and it'll give us our conversion total shares. Same thing for Series Seed, multiply it by the Series Seed conversion rate. And then common stock is going to be the same, options are going to be the same, and then we'll just have a sum total of all the shares right there. Then we're going to go in, and for shares left after Series B liquidation, right now they are calculated off of the shares total in column B. I want to move those over to column C right there and copy and paste that formula all the way down. We just have to make a few modifications like this in order to get it all working correctly. After that, we got to go in and just basically move all the cells over that reference the B column to the C column in this particular cell set right up here. And it's not many of them. The first one is the max participation amount. We have B7 up at the top. We need to reference C7. So just change that B to a C. And then in the Series A as if converted, we have B7. Let's change that B to a C. And then after that, we'll go into the Series A participation amount. We have B7 again. Let's change that B to a C. And I think there's one more, and that is the shares left after Series A liquidation. So we have all B's up here, B11, B6, B7. Just change that to C11, C6, and C7. And then just highlight all of those cells and copy them down so that everything changes appropriately. We should still have the same answers because we haven't changed anything yet. Now what we did is the shares left after Series A liquidation is going to be different if we have any anti-dilution shares issued here. It won't affect the top of the waterfall, it'll affect everything below it because it'll basically just change this sum total here. It'll change that to equate to calculate for all of the new dilution shares that are issued. After we do the Series A portion, we'll just go down and change the exact same lines on the Series Seed. So first off is max participation amount. There's B8, and we want to change that to C8. And then in the as if converted, we have B8 again. Let's change that to C8. Then we'll go to the participation amount, change the B8 to C8. And then the shares left after liquidation, we want to just move all of those from B column to the C column. Go through and copy those down. And we still have all the same numbers. Everything's working out correctly. Let's go through and make sure all of our checks still say checks out, which they do. Then make sure we still have yeses all the way down here on the check figures, which we do once again. So, a few things to remember here whenever you do this. First of all, if you have your weighted average anti-dilution box checked on the cap table, you have to go in and rerun solver every time you change a pre-money valuation, or else things are not going to calculate correctly. You're going to have your conversion ratios off, which will then affect your liquidation model and everything else. And then let's see what happens if we have a down round to the liquidation model. So let's change that to 5 million right there. And let's look at the liquidation model and see how it's kind of affected here. So first things first, let's look at the conversion shares that we have here. We have a 2.02 conversion rate for Series Seed because we had a down round in Series A. So what changes is the conversion shares are 2.02 times higher than the Series Seed shares that were issued. So that doesn't affect the waterfall for Series B or Series A. What it does is it affects the waterfall for Series Seed. Series Seed now has a larger portion of ownership for whenever they receive funds, and they'll take more whenever their place in the waterfall occurs. So we can see that here, as if converted, they're taking 43 million of what's remaining of the residual of 178 million. So they're taking a large portion of the remainder because they are 2xing their amount of shares. The other thing to remember is that whenever we're calculating the shares left after Series A liquidation, that's the one that matters. That's the one that matters to calculating the ownership levels correctly. So we're not dividing by this amount down here, by this C11. We're dividing by the shares left after Series A liquidation. So that's how this kind of works in the waterfall. After the shares receive their money, they're removed from that denominator calculation, and that's why in the Series Seed amount there's only 1.89 million shares, and the Series Seed is getting 455,000 divided by that 1.89 million. So they're receiving a large portion of the remainder. So let's do that real quick. So the conversion shares are 458, and the denominator is the 1.889. So they're receiving 24% of the remaining shares. Whereas if there was no conversion shares, they would be receiving 12%. So you can see that anti-dilution kick-in really made a big difference in the waterfall. But what happened is the Series A and the shares, the Series B, or really the Series A, they received more shares because they had a down round. So it takes more money off the top line, but they receive more of what's left over. I know that's a little confusing, but hopefully that makes plenty of sense. And that kind of wraps up what we're trying to accomplish here. So now we've done the cap table, the liquidation model, and the anti-dilution calculations, and then we wrap the anti-dilution calculations into the liquidation model.